Hello everyone, I'm Kathy Power, Superintendent with the Twinsburg City School District. Welcome to Twinsburg Schools today. Well, we're practically at the halfway part of the 2018-19 school year. It is so hard to believe that fall is in the rearview mirror and we're looking forward to actually plans for the 2019-20 school year. But before I get ahead of myself, I wanted to highlight some of the exceptional programs that we enjoy at Wilcox Primary School. So our first segment is featuring our assistant principal, Mr. Scott Astey. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And one of our wonderful teachers, our teacher in our kindergarten preparatory program, is Beth Wells. Welcome.
Hi, thank you.
Well, so we are so excited about our new preschool offering known as the kindergarten preparatory program. And although halfway through the year already, time flies when we're having so much fun with our students. It took a while to get to the point of launching a new preschool program at the school. Can you just talk to our viewers a little bit about the journey to get to this point?
Absolutely. It was probably about 2 years ago we started having a conversation about offering a supplemental preschool program to the community and families. Looking at the kindergarten screening data, we were able to see, students coming in with that preschool experience were performing, above students without that preschool experience typically. So we wanted to offer an option to those families. Maybe they didn't have transportation to a community preschool or the financial obligation of a community preschool. So we wanted something in-house to kind of get students ready for kindergarten, knowing that developing that early learning readiness and making students ready for kindergarten. What does that mean? It means academically students are aware of some letters and colors and sounds, as well as that social emotional, being ready to learn and attend to that information. So the journey's been long and hard, really looking at some of those different aspects of the community, looking at the Twinsburg community as a whole of what it needs, and digging into, okay, well, how do we get this going? So from looking at state licensing requirements to the sheer logistics of where in the building are we going to house one new classroom or two new classrooms. And
we've always had a preschool program at Wilcox.
Absolutely. We currently and have had an integrated preschool program serving students with special needs, and part of that's having the typically developing peers with them. And that program has been there, but this program we wanted to stand out a little bit, be similar in line, but have a different offering and a different flair to it.
And thankfully we've had great community partners along the way.
Yes.
Summit Education Initiative is one of our premier partners, I would like to say.
Absolutely. Summit Education Initiative has really been a capstone in leading us forward with the charge of getting out into the community and looking at it as, okay, what is the landscape of early childhood education going to? Also, State Support Team 8 has been a valuable resource. When looking at the dynamic of the program, we settled on it being project-based. So I reached out to my friends at State Support Team 8 and we decided, this project-based, brought it back, said, okay, what is that? Let's look into it. And looking at the landscape and the change in tides of education, making it more student-centered, creating cultures of thinking within the classroom, we're settled on a project base is the next step in education.
Now, how is that different than the model of teaching and learning in the integrated program?
With the integrated program, it's more of a traditional sense. Students have centered learning. The teachers really are at the forefront of developing the lessons based off what the students need and where they're going, in tune with the early learning development standards and those other areas. But with the project-based approach, it's a little more open-ended. It's a lot more student-driven, taking a thematic approach of student interests and capitalizing on their interests to move forward with the lesson. And so within that theme are created projects, and within the projects is embedded the learning, the letters, the sounds, the numbers, the counting. And that's where the magic happens.
The magic happens. And so we have two classes now of preschoolers, and Ms. Wells, you are one of two teachers.
Yes.
Mrs. Jaskowitz is our second KPP teacher, as our program has been known to be called now.
Yes.
And the kids that are in your class, or the students in your classroom, are of a different age than the integrated program.
Yes, they're 4- and 5-year-olds.
A little bit older.
Yes, they are, yes. Most of them, some of them have just turned 5, but a lot of them are 4, so.
And not quite ready to go on to kindergarten.
Yes, and it's an awesome opportunity for them to get themselves prepared, for us to help them prepare for kindergarten.
So how has the first semester in your classroom gone?
It's gone really well. We started out looking at doing pets is what we started, because what child doesn't really want to have a pet?
That's right.
And we wanted to also incorporate a pet into our classroom, and so we wanted their input as to what kind of a pet we could have in the classroom, and we had some amazing discussions about what kind of pet to have in a classroom.
I bet they were fascinating.
Yes, you know, we talked about elephants being in the classroom and giraffes, and so. But we, and then as we go along, we do an awful lot of writing with our kids, so that they can see the writing process and how that letters form words, and that words are read, and so we do an awful lot of charting in the classroom, and we hang them up, and so we put our pets down, and we talked about all that, and notice that we did go with the tame pets and not like a zoo pet or something of that sort.
That was a wise decision.
Yes, it was, yes, because we did try and go on different avenues with that. But they came up with some good things, and so we talked about all the different pets, and then we went on to talk about how do we care for a pet. And so we would chart that too, on how they would care for a pet. This was one of the other ways on how they would care for a pet. We talked about that. And we talked about what they would need for a pet, and it took us a while to get through all that, several weeks to go through, because we looked at each pet and we would learn about the characteristics and their habitat, and so.
And through all of this, they're developing language.
Absolutely, absolutely, and they're also learning the letters and the sounds, because as I am charting, I'm also saying to them, okay, dog. What does what letter, so they're actually helping me chart as we're doing this. And so they're learning, as Mr. Astey said, they're learning with their interest, something they're interested in. And they're so engaged in what we're doing. And and they were so excited about the prospect of having a pet, in the classroom.
For sure.
So we did all that, and then in the end, they did a pet survey.
The children did a pet survey.
The pet survey, yep. They filled it out, yep. And then we also, after we got done, then we charted, we graphed the results. And as you can see, the fish pretty much won in my classroom.
There you go. What were the three options of fish?
We narrowed it down to a fish, and a box turtle, and a hermit crab. And I really thought that they would all go to the hermit crab, but they didn't. They chose the fish for some reason. So that's how we ended up with. But all through that, there's always a guiding question that we always ask them. And we always refer to that guiding question as we go through whatever we're talking about. And for this, it was, how can I prepare for a pet?
So was it a different question every day?
No, this was the question that we would refer to every day for the whole weeks that we talked about getting a pet in the classroom. And they got to know that question, and we would talk about, okay, so how at the end, how can we prepare for a pet? And they were able to, okay, this is what we need to do. And it was all so hands-on for them, because I got the aquarium. I was able to get a grant for the aquarium and the supplies that we needed. And then they actually helped me put together the aquarium. They helped me clean it. They helped me feed them. So it's also teaching them responsibility. How are we going to, there were things that came up, well, how are we going to fix that, And they've done such a nice job.
So it's really engaging the children in real life situations.
Yes.
Helping them learn how to problem solve and work together as they're setting up the aquarium.
Mm-hmm.
And I take it we have fish now at the
yes,
school.
Yes, we have fish at school, yes, yep, we do. And they're doing okay, so
That's a good thing.
Yeah, that's a good thing, yep. So, and then as we finished up the pet, the project with the pet and got through that, then I think one of the challenges is trying to find their interests of what to move on, because that's what project-based is. It's about their interests. And so as we were doing these projects, as a teacher, I'm listening and watching and really seeing what they're interested in, you know. And a lot of them were very interested in transportation and vehicles. I mean, even the girls were over, you know, playing with their trucks. And so we moved on then into the transportation area and started talking about that. And like, just for instance, just to incorporate shapes, you know, into their projects, we did all shape vehicles for them.
Look at that.
And so they were learning their shapes as they did their vehicles. And then also the other part of a project-based learning is that it's, as you said, it's hands-on. And it's more learning about the real world. And so Twinsburg Fire Department was awesome enough to come out and show them a fire truck, which
I bet the children
oh
were
my goodness.
absolutely ecstatic.
I was ecstatic about it.
I know.
They brought out, what, the jaws of life, they
yes,
called it? And some of
and the kids are saying, oh, those are great big scissors.
They are.
But, you know, those are the differences that we try to incorporate within the project-based, along with the standards and the academics. And, you know, we're trying to give them the hands-on and the real-life experience of things that they won't forget.
Right.
And I don't think that they're going to forget seeing the fire truck and the ambulance. And, you know.
I bet not.
Yeah, yeah.
And how to care for a pet at home.
And how to care for a pet at home and how much responsibility it is. And,
Right.
you know, because we've run into some problems with the water and, you know, and we've had to do research and try and figure those out as a class. And of course, we've lost a couple fish, and that was another conversation. But all part of life. I mean, those things happen, you know.
Yeah.
So it's been a really awesome experience. I think it's a really great program for the kids.
What are we hearing from their parents about children in the KPP program?
I'm getting a lot of positive feedback about they like the fact that it's hands-on, that they're learning about real life, you know, things, and that also that we are incorporating the academics. You know, every parent wants their child to be ready academic-wise too for kindergarten. But I think the biggest thing is social. I think a lot of parents are concerned about the social aspect of their children, you know, and we do a lot of social skills. And okay, if this happens, you know, tell your friend, let's talk it out, let's, you know. So I do get a lot of feedback from them about that too. So
That is fantastic.
yeah, yeah.
What a great opportunity
I
for
know.
our youngest
Yes,
tigers.
it is awesome.
And as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, boy, we're going to be planning for next school year already.
Yeah.
So if you are a mom or dad watching our show today and thinking, boy, this program
Yeah.
sounds like it's
Yeah.
going to be a perfect opportunity for my child, or maybe the integrated preschool might be, where can we look for information?
So there's going to be information coming up on the website to look for the application and information coming out in January. January, where we'll open up the typical peer lottery for the integrated preschool program, as well as be accepting the applications for the kindergarten preparatory program. So stay tuned, keep an eye on the webpage. The kindergarten preparatory program is for students 4 and 5 by August 1st who are going to kindergarten that following year. And the integrated program is students who are 3 by August 1st of next year.
Okay, so we're always forward planning in our business, aren't
That's
we?
right.
Yep, yep.
But in the meantime, boy, we have some outstanding things happening at Wilcox Primary School. Thank you, Ms.
Yeah,
Wells, for
yeah.
being here today.
Yeah, thank you.
And my gosh,
Yes.
thank you for what you're doing to get
Yeah.
our youngest kids on the right path to learning
Yeah, we're excited.
in a great way.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
Well, when we return, we're going to be talking with one of our outstanding reading specialists, Mrs. Sue Wozniak. So stay tuned. Welcome back to Twinsburg Schools Today. We are just so excited to feature today some of our outstanding programs at Wilcox Primary School. And in our first segment, you met Ms. Beth Wells, who is one of our educators in our kindergarten preparatory program. Well, now I'd like to introduce you to Ms. Sue Wozniak. Welcome.
Thank you.
And you are one of our reading specialists at Wilcox Primary
Yes,
School.
there's 3 of us. Now, we started with 1.
Yeah, wow, the program has grown.
Yes.
Well, and you know, I think that at our primary school, one of the most important things that we do is to set our children onto their career in education by making sure that they're good readers.
Yes, and that's so important because everything, I always tell the kids, everything involves reading. And my kids are strugglers. So they'll come in and say, I hate to read. And I said, do you want to drive a car? Yes. You have to learn how to read the test. Do you want to drive a truck? Yes, you have to learn to read the signs and the maps. Do you want to be an NBA player? Yes, you have to read the contracts and you have to read all the information. So yeah, I try to keep it to their level and what they really want to be, because they think reading is not so important. So we're really building on why they need to do it and how no matter what they want to do in life, that it's important that they have to read.
Right, and as we get underway at the beginning of the school year, Mr. Astey, I know that teachers engage in a lot of assessment of children. What are some of the things that we use to help identify whether or not we have a struggling reader?
Great. And it really starts back in May, long before students even walk in the doors to Wilcox, with our kindergarten screening, where we collect information on their familiarity with the letters and the sounds and different phonemes and processes. And we kind of look at them as where those needs are. And every year we have a bell curve of students coming in. Some students who are reading at a literary level of C or D, and some who struggle with identifying any letters. So our job as educators, especially with kindergartners, is to take them from where they are and move them forward. And so we use the kindergarten screening assessment, and we also use the MAP, measures of academic progress, to really assess the level of intervention that students need. And we have a great response to intervention program with our 3 reading instructionalists to really help those students on different levels of where they are and where they're coming in, and to move them forward.
So I guess as a student is introduced to you, and through the classroom teacher we identify that they are really having some difficulty in early literacy, what are some of the things that you do to work with them?
Well, there's a lot of different things we do. We start with running records, which is a leveled book that they read to us, and we analyze it. Do they know how to actually decode the words, read the words? So we look at accuracy of read. Are they making self-correction? So a lot of times we read fast and we read for the, and do we go back and fix it? Are they fluent? Are they reading it like a robot, or can they read at a moderate speed where it sounds good? It sounds like you're talking. So do they have the phonics? Can they actually figure out words, or are they just guessing by the pictures? Are they even using the pictures? So a lot of those skills go into, we look at that running record, and then we start with our foundations program, which is our phonics program.
Okay.
And the foundations program we've been doing 7 or 8 years now. Mm-hmm. We brought it in, we piloted in a couple classrooms, and our kids were doing so well with the reading and the writing and breaking the words apart and putting them together. So we started everyone's doing foundations, which is basically a phonics program, but it takes, here's one of ours, it's a keyword, which is queen, but we talk about QU, which is a chicken letter, because Q never goes anywhere without U. And there's a lot of drama, because I literally take a child and say, you're you, and I drag them all around the classroom while I'm screaming, I'm scared. And you can't say anything. But they learn these little tricks and rules. We have digraphs, CH, chin, ch, and they know it's a big fat push of air. So they go through these cards, and we learn them little by little, and we take these letters and we can manipulate them, so we can put them, we have actually a workspace, we put them together, so we'll say make the word rat, and they have to go at, and they have to make it.
So they're hand gestures.
Yes, and that's a lot of the kinesthetic that we do with that. And some of them make it that it says tar, so we have to go back and say, okay, you have to go it in the correct order, or they have the wrong vowel, so then we know that we have to rework on our vowels, and our vowels all have motions that go with the mouth. Ah. So you, up, the roof of your mouth lifts up. I, itch, your nose goes up like you have a little itch. E is the hardest one, so we tell them to make this horrible smile like this, and they go, because what they do is they go, and they drop their jaw, and that's A, which is and they confuse the two of them a lot. And then we go, octopus, and this is great because I actually have them sing when we do that, because it rings in your mouth like the ah vowel when you're singing. So we go back and we do a lot of things, we break these down, and we apply this into our books.
So in the intervention classroom, then, it's more than just reading a book. There are so many different modalities that you're trying to engage the child in, because everyone learns in a little different way.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and that's kind of where the level books come in. So we added the foundations to everything, and then we started doing leveled books. And these
what
are some
does
of
that
the,
mean, leveled books?
A leveled book means you start out with less complexity. So when you look at a book like this, there's a couple sentences. So, and this is a level C. A level A might only have one sentence with 4 words. A lot of picture support, not as much punctuation, less complex vocabulary. And as it goes up, you have more complex vocabulary. You have longer sentences, more sentences on a page. Because I know when we switch to some books, my kids go, oh my. And I say, you know all the words, we've just put 4 sentences on a page instead of 1. And then we try to go off with, this is fiction, and they love these Danny books because they're just funny, and the pictures are great, and the stories are funny.
And Danny's the dog.
He's a dog, yeah.
Okay.
Mia Colton is local. She lives in Chagrin Falls.
Okay.
She's one of my heroes. Because my boys love to read her books. The girls do too, but if I can get the boys, it's just wonderful because they're the ones I struggle the most with in finding subject matter they like. My other thing I like to do is nonfiction. So we did this one. These are fairly new. Am I a snake? And they have to talk about why it's a snake, and then we go to it's actually a moth. So we're doing some problem solving, but you can see it's not as much sentence work on there, not as many words on there. And then as the books get more difficult, there's more complexity with the words and better vocabulary.
Right. So I know that you are kind of an educator that's always looking for the next great thing to use in the classroom. And a couple of years ago, you were invited for a great opportunity. Can you tell our viewers a little bit about that?
Yes, I was invited. My professor, my mentor, my friend, Dr. Tim Rosinski, had recommended me for Great Minds. And they were looking at what can we do to reach the kids, because level books are great. We're still not quite reaching. There's that gap. How can we like make that gap smaller? And so they wanted to talk about foundations, and my nickname at school is the Foundations Queen. So,
Rightfully so.
There you go.
So they wanted me to come and present about foundations, and they were talking about decodable books and level books, and how can we make the books more reachable for the kids. And so we talked about that because decodable books, and I know you and I talked about that, decodable books don't have a lot of content. It's Pat sat on a mat, the cat had a hat. So yeah, they can figure the words out, but there's no content, there's no richness to it. So I got to go down to New Orleans, and it was just this huge think tank. It was just an amazing amount. It was primarily 99% women, and it was just amazing. The brains, like I was exhausted when I was done, but I literally hit the ground at 8 in the morning, and we went through lunch, the afternoon, and dinner, and just continued to talk. And like the ideas coming out of it were amazing. And we thought, well, how can we take these level books but make them better? How can we make them more decodable but not be silly? How can it be rich vocabulary? And we also talked about how the pictures are so very, very important.
Right.
So I left there really excited, not able to say anything about what we were going to do. It was a big secrecy thing because it's a patent thing, and been waiting just anxiously. This summer they contacted me, and we Skyped, and they showed me some of the things, and I was like, just wowed. I couldn't believe like what they were doing. They were just wowed about what they did, and they kind of had taken a U-turn on what they were doing because making it just decodable wasn't rich, and it wasn't reaching everything. It still wasn't like lessening that gap. So they came up with books like The Story Ship. So they're not leveled like the levels we have A, B, C. They're leveled on our foundations units. So this book is Unit 3, so they have to know consonant, vowel, consonant, but it's also digraphs, so WH, CH, SH, TH, CK. And when you go through it, it's The Story Ship, and a lot of them are nonfiction, which is fabulous. The pictures are really rich, and the words, even the way they do some of the text, like this is a ship with a story, but they can attain all these words because they know this. The other part of it is that, so 84% of their books are reachable based on knowing that foundations unit. When you look at some of the Fontes and Pinnell ones, they also looked at those. They're only like 40 to 50% reachable by the kids. So you don't have some of them have rich content, some don't, but it's that, can that child reach that and attain it? And I'm just starting with these books, but what we found is that we didn't have the vocabulary.
Right, you mentioned that when we visited your classroom last week.
Yeah, so it was like thick and thin. They didn't know what that was. They didn't know what a rag was. So the vocabulary we're developing is amazing. And the pictures, like I said, they're fantastic. So you have drawings, and that's the other cool thing is some of them are drawings, some of them are photographs, and they're mixing them together like that. But the whole basis of this is that they said they call it the Geode series. And the reason they call it a Geode series is a kid looks at a book like this, and they just kind of see a book, even if it's got pretty pictures on the outside, and they're like, yeah, it's a book I have to read again. It's so hard. So a geode, when you look at the outside of it, is very plain, very gray, and we were talking about this yesterday with the kids, and they go, well, it's just a rock. It's nothing special. But when you crack it open, then look at what you
Look at
find.
that.
So the
Beautiful.
treasure inside, well, the treasure inside the book, and can you reach this and attain this? So now we're working on reaching and attaining the vocabulary, telling you can figure out those words, and if you're not sure what they mean, let's go back and talk about it, and then let's reread it. And it goes all the way up. So I have, this is all about Ireland, so that's higher level, that's towards the end of first grade. But then I have all these great ones, like this series is about Story Ship and a Magical Stack, the Library of Fez, and the stories are rich, they're interesting, they're fun. I'm learning things. And I'm also learning where I need to develop my vocabulary with the children, because I know Mrs. Wells had talked about doing conversation. We don't have enough conversation to develop that. So how can we develop that and talk about that and build on all that? And the kids are getting through the stories now, and they're like, they're really excited, they're learning new things, and they're like, we know all these new words, and so what I've been doing is, so tell me what thick and thin means, and they're like, and they're giving examples, and they're like, so now they see it and they know it. So we still have our leveled books, but now we have this that ties in with the foundations, and it's taking that gap we had, and hopefully it's lessening it, and that we're reaching them, and they're finding that books are a lot of fun, they're rich, you can go on such a great adventure, just like opening up the geode, which is what they built that on, which I thought, oh my gosh, that's so wonderful, because they just look at this and see it as a rock.
Right.
So,
Especially students who have a little difficulty in early literacy.
yes.
And I really appreciate all of your efforts in continuing to look for the next thing that might just attract and keep kids reading books, because that's the wealth right here. And all of the things that you brought today really do make a lot of sense. And I really appreciate all that you do in trying to reach our students where they are and then taking them up to the next level.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Well, I want to thank both of you for being our guests today on Twinsburg Schools Today. It's always a treat to visit Wilcox Primary School. There is never a day that I've been there that there's not a lot of excitement, and the kids are learning, and the staff is amazing, and the administrators are world class as well. So thanks for being here today. Well, we hope that you enjoyed our show here at Twinsburg City School District. Please take a look at our district website for the most up-to-date information about all of our district events. We hope to see you very soon at one of our events in the Twinsburg City School District. Have a great day.